Hello and welcome to today's question and answers session about raising bilingual and multilingual children. My name is Rita Rosenbach. I am the author of the book Bringing Up a Bilingual Child, and I'm also the driving force behind the website multilingualparenting.com, as well as the Facebook page you're on at the moment. And we also have a group, Multilingual Parenting. If you haven't already joined us, please do so. Just remember to answer the 3 joining questions if you do. And today I will be answering 4 questions that have been sent to me in advance. If there are any additional questions in the comments, I will pick those up too. Hi Frank, welcome. Happy to see you here. And the first question I have came from Sehee. She has a 2-year-old daughter. She speaks Korean to her daughter, and her husband speaks Bulgarian. They live in the US. And Sehee's question is that they lived for a short while in Bulgaria, and during that time Bulgarian became her daughter's strongest language. Now, since they moved to the US and the daughter attends full-time daycare in English only, she answers both her mom and dad in English, so no longer uses Korean or Bulgarian to answer the questions. Now, Sehee, you didn't mention whether you and your husband, where you speak English together, because that's a fairly important part of the equation. Since if you speak English together, then English already has got a place in your home, and your daughter is used to hearing both of you speaking English. Since she has started kindergarten or daycare in English, it seems that the English has now become her strongest language, the language which she's most comfortable in. And then because children always are very pragmatic and with their languages, what they do is they use the language that they find most easiest. Find easiest. If a parent should never think that that the child is kind of turning against one's language if they are not answering in it. Children do not think like that. Children just use the mode of communication that they find easiest. And if, like the majority language, like in Sehee's case for her daughter, English has clearly become the strongest language, that is the language she will respond to, especially if she's used to hearing her mom and dad speak English. So what can be done about it? So that's the basic. It's a normal thing to happen, and it's actually a natural thing for a child to do, because they don't think about languages like we as parents or adults do, that we should now speak this language and it's very useful if you always stick to that language. Children don't do that. They just want to communicate, and they do it in the way that they find it easiest. So what can we do about it? Patience is what I always say. If you stick at it and you are consistent in always using your languages when you speak directly with your daughter, see, same for you and for your husband. So you always address her in Korean, and I would recommend that you do it also even if your husband is present, and even if he may not understand everything what you say. You just have to discuss the situation, and I presume you will agree that you want your daughter to learn both Korean and Bulgarian, and for that maybe some of the sacrifice is that you don't always understand everything what is spoken with your daughter, but then you need to both have the confidence to ask. If you find that now I'm feeling left out here, but I don't understand what's going on, then ask. It's also the other parent's duty to translate when need be, all in the name of keeping the communication going and also making sure everybody's included. But if your priority is to pass on both Korean and Bulgarian, then consistency is in this case very crucial. I'm not one of the people who say that every parent should always be consistent in every single scenario. No, because children can cope with mixing languages amazingly well, and it's not a big deal even if in one parent one language family where you use that strategy that you sometimes switch to the other language. It's not a big deal. However, when there is very little exposure to a language, then the importance of consistency is heightened. The less exposure to a language, the more important it is that you stay consistent in the use of the language. So it's directly in relation to the amount of exposure a child gets. If you both have a current common language such as Bulgarian, what you might consider, in case English is your common language at the moment, switching away from English and using Bulgarian. I'm not sure if your husband knows Korean, but since you've been living in Bulgaria, I presume that you know at least some Bulgarian. So try to increase the overall use of the minority languages, Korean and Bulgarian, at home. And you say that you've been looking for weekend schools, and you're sorry to notice that they don't start until the age of 3. That's still fine. Don't worry. She's only 2 at the moment. There are many children that don't even express themselves at all at the age of 2. So if you find Korean, Bulgarian weekend schools when she's 3, then fine, that's perfect. No, that's not even available in all languages. So that's absolutely great. So thank you. Sehee, if you watch now or if you watch the recording, please add any questions in the comments, and I'll pick those up later. Okay, Frank, since you're online, I'll take your question now. Which is, your son is 2 years old, and he started mixing his 2 languages. You speak Spanish and your wife speaks German, and he's very proficient in both languages, but he has a preference for German since you live in Germany. What can I do to enhance the input of Spanish? For a 2-year-old, it's all about interacting in the language as much as possible. No children's TV or program or any recording can be as effective as speaking with the child and doing things together. So anything you do at home, would it be to, let's say, make breakfast or clean the house or work in the garden, or anything you do, then make it so your child can participate and then speak about what you're doing, because your actions will then connect with the words, and that will effectively build up the vocabulary. So that's just a natural situation. There is no pressure, and so don't think about it as a teaching situation. Just a natural, effective interaction. That is the best way to do it when you're at home. The other, if you can, the most effective way for a child to kind of become more proficient in a minority language is to spend time in a place where Spanish is spoken by everyone. So Spanish is in where you live. It's come from the media, on the in the shops, in the community, everywhere. And especially if for the child, if it's possible to arrange that the child can spend time with other children of the same age who speak the language, in your case Spanish, Frank, that is a very effective way of getting the child to be used to speaking more of the minority language. Don't worry about the mixing. That is just how bilingual, multilingual children learn their languages. They use whatever word they find when they want to express themselves. I'm going through this with my grandson at the moment, who is just about to turn 3, and he uses Swedish and English, whichever language he finds easiest. There's been a huge change within, let's say, since he was 2.5 until now, where he's been using more and more Swedish, while English, he also attends English daycare. So English was clearly his strongest language. Now, when he's getting closer to 3, he's learning so much more Swedish. Don't worry about the mixing. Your son will learn to separate the languages when he grows up. So that's fine. Don't worry about that at all. So if you have any further questions to that, Frank, please go ahead and put them in the comments. Diana, you had a quick question. Is it true that a kid raised in a multilingual home takes more time to learn to talk? Children are there are big differences between the children. I can give you the examples of my own daughters. My younger daughter, my elder daughter was a very early talker, and she used both her languages, which at that point were Finnish and Punjabi. She used them before the age of 2. While my other daughter, she was 3.5 about when she stringed the full sentence together. So multilingual children can be early talkers and late talkers, but generally what you find is, so how a child learns a language, it learns by the amount of exposure it gets to a language. And it's just a question of math. If a child learns more than one language, there is less time for each language, and for that reason, it is quite natural and to be expected that the vocabularies won't grow as quickly in 2 languages as the one vocabulary does for a monolingual child. So, but this doesn't mean that they're behind. They're just doing things in a different order. And by the age of 4 or 5, bilingual children have usually caught up with a monolingual child's vocabulary, but not only in one language, but in 2 languages. So, first of all, we should never compare bilingual children and monolingual children in their development. It's like comparing apples and pears. It's quite a different thing to deal with more than one language and one language only. I hope that answered your question, Diana. If not, please do ask further questions. And then I'll just pick up these questions in the comments. So Carla, good morning, Carla. Your husband speaks French and you're American. He speaks to your 19-month-old in French, and you speak English, and you go to English day school. How can you make sure that your daughter, sorry, that she continues to flourish in English in writing, reading skills, even when not in an immersive school? If your husband is the only source of exposure to French for your daughter, then it is very much up to him to make sure that he speaks as much French as possible and reads a lot of books. I cannot emphasize the importance of books enough, because through books children get used to the written word as well, and your husband can, when it comes to that stage that she gets interested in learning to read and write, because I'm a true believer in that you have to wait until your child shows interest in learning before you try to teach it. Or you can introduce letters through games, but only as a game and not like as a serious teaching project. So when the child starts to ask questions about letters and words, then go ahead and teach. But if you can, for French, if you like, with in my answer to Frank, if you have the chance to ever go, and preferably once a year, if you can, go and stay somewhere where a child is immersed in French, that is always a good booster. So it depends on how much time, Carla, your husband has got time to spend with your daughter. You might have heard a figure of 30% of the exposure time being the minimum. That is just, it's a good goal to have, but it's not an absolute, and it is not something that's been found out in research. I think that would be, it's because the amount of exposure and the quality of exposure varies from family to family. I know for sure that my daughters, both, they are now adults. They learned their Punjabi from their father, and there was no way that it was 30%. It was nowhere near. It was probably less than 20% when they were small that they heard Punjabi, but they still grew up to be able to communicate it, and still today, they're now both adults, can use the language, and they speak the language with their relatives as well. Both of them did go later on, but that was not until later on at 6 and 12 when they learned Punjabi at school as well. So yes, it takes commitment and from your husband, consistency, and from your support. And also, if you do understand some French, Carla, please ask your husband to speak as much French at home as possible. So you can, even if you understand French, then what you can do is that your husband speaks French, but you still answer in English. It's perfectly fine to have conversations in 2 different languages. That will not confuse a child. But what it does is that it brings more of the minority language into the home. Yes, Diana, books rock. Yes, they certainly do. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And can read books in different languages. Fantastic. You're welcome, Frank. So I have Sabilia's question. So your 5-year-old used to balance both English and Spanish. She speak to your husband and his family in English, and Spanish to your family and to you. And now she started school. She wants to speak more Spanish, especially knowing that I speak English. If I try to enforce Spanish with me, she chooses not to speak. How can I encourage that balance back? This is the typical situation when a child goes to school in the majority language, then that the preference goes to using that. It is, again, patience and making sure that your child, especially with regards to school, make sure that you speak about what happens in the school in your language, because sometimes what happens is that a lot of new things happens in the school environment, and maybe your child doesn't have your daughter doesn't have the vocabulary yet to speak about that in Spanish, because it all happens in English. Of course, it's easier for her to relate it in English because that's the language it happened in. And what I would say is not to enforce it too much at that point. Like, let's say she comes home from school and wants to speak about something at school. I did that mistake myself, and my younger daughter picked me up on it later on and said, I didn't like it, Mum, when you did that, because I just wanted to tell you, and you told me to switch language. So yes, so I learned it the hard way. So don't do the mistake I did. So allow anything your child to tell you about anything that happens at school. And what you can do then is later in the evening, maybe before going to bed, speak about the same things again, but in Spanish, making sure that you bring in all the words and phrases and vocabulary in Spanish. And also, every time she answers you in English, just answer in Spanish, but don't make a big deal about it. Because what we want to avoid is for the child to have a negative feeling about the language, or getting kind of an impression that we are forcing them to do something. I always say, don't compel a child to speak a language, make it compelling for them. So I don't mind using some treats or things. Say, okay, now we will do this, we will play this game together, but we will do it in this language. And then you just need to persist on it, have patience, keep on speaking your language. It can be done. I've seen it happening in my own family. I see it happening now with my grandson, who on a daily basis only hears Swedish from his mum, and he's picking it up. So it can be done. So don't worry, believe in it. It's been done before. Many other parents have been successful. I'm sure you can be too. Just stick to your Spanish, and don't make, like I said, don't make too big a deal of it. So I hope that answers your question, Ophelia. You're sorry that she tries to speak more English than Spanish. Yes, I understand that. But what you need to keep in mind, that this is not against you. It's not against you and your language, Sabilia. This is a natural reaction from a child who is stronger in the language. Maybe there might be also something about wanting to be just like everybody else at school, or there are many different things that can play in. It's not against you. So as soon as you kind of accept that and internalize that thought, that it's not against you, it's just how it works for her at the moment. It's easier for her to speak English. Then you can have more compassion in the situation and not feel offended, and don't feel sorry. Your child is learning 2 languages, and she's behaving just like any other kid. And so just be patient, keep on speaking, and show your, instead of showing a negative feeling when she speaks English, show the positive feeling when she's speaking Spanish. Maybe, I don't know if she's keen on like some charts or anything where she gets points for speaking Spanish or anything like that. I am not against bribery at this point when we want our children to start speaking the minority language more. Just think about what your child really, really, really wants to do, and then find a way to do that in Spanish. So I would say anything is permissible. And I wish you good luck, and I am sure you can do it, Sabelia. Don't worry about it. You can do it. And hi, Kat. Oh, thank you. I love getting virtual hugs, and I'm glad that I can help. Oh, thank you, Sabelia. Yes, just go ahead. You can. I believe in you, and I've seen it done so many times. And I also know exactly what you're feeling, and that's also a natural feeling, but keep positive. It will be fine. Okay, I'll go back to the questions that have been sent in to me in advance. I have one from Sarah. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Sarah writes that she's learned a lot from the website. I'm so happy to hear that. That's why I keep writing them, because I just don't think there is enough information out there, and I love to write it in the form that it's easy to access and digest. So she asks about raising a trilingual child. So Sarah, I presume you are not online, but if you have any questions after my answer, just put them in the comments. I'll pick them up. Sarah and her husband, they're both English. They do not have any children yet. They live in the US, and she would like to raise her child or their future children to speak at least three, maybe four languages. So the plan is for Sarah that she will, prior to their first child being born, she will learn Spanish. Kudos to you, Sarah. That's a good goal to have, and I wish you all the best with it. And she wants to become fluent before the baby is born. And then Sarah's plan is that she will speak Spanish and her husband will speak English, and they will move to Germany when perhaps before the child or is born or very early on. So then the child will be exposed to three languages: Spanish from mom, German from dad, English from dad, and German at school. That is a perfect scenario for a child to grow up trilingual, because there will be one language from each parent, and then a third language from the school, and that is the best scenario for a child to naturally pick up three languages, of course, providing that there is enough exposure for both home languages. What Sarah is worried about is, will my children learn Spanish with a weird American accent? She will play videos containing native Spanish, but she asked whether that will be enough. Could my child be considered a native Spanish speaker? I will take a step back first to speak generally about languages. Languages are about communication, and that's what we always need to keep in mind. And accents, like I speak with an accent. I carry my accents with a pride in all the languages I speak. And I like the sentence, the phrase, quotation. I have no idea who said it, but it's really good. It's show respect for those people that speak with an accent. They probably speak one more language than you do. So I wouldn't worry too much about the accent. I would be surprised if your daughter would grow up as a native Spanish speaker if the most of the exposure comes from you, and there won't be any native speakers that she can interact with. It is good to listen to videos and children's programs in the native in native Spanish, like for your children, but it's the most effective way to learn a language, for a child to learn a language, is to acquire a language, is through interaction. But I wouldn't worry too much about it. If your child grows up being able to communicate in Spanish, even if it's even with an accent, what you can do then is, or the child can do at a later point in life, is spend more time in the country, or if maybe you can go and spend together time in a country where there will be more exposure to native speakers. What you could also consider, if it's financially possible, is to bring in a Spanish-speaking nanny. That's a very effective way of passing on a native language. So those are all the the possible ways of improving the accent. But first of all, don't worry too much about it. It's if you get to a stage where your child can communicate in it, that's a huge thing, and that can be built upon. Sarah then asked, how could we incorporate a fourth language? Sarah, I will not answer your question at this point, because you know what? You will have a new baby. A lot will change. You will move you move to another country. You will have 3 languages to deal with. So deal with that to start with. So when you have a child, you have moved, and you have learned Spanish, and you notice that your child is speaking those 2 languages, then contact me again. And then we can speak about the fourth language if you think you still want to do it. Because I don't think you should worry about that at this point. It is possible, it can be done, it has been done. But you have a mountain to climb with becoming fluent in Spanish, having a child, moving a country, and having 3 languages in one go. So therefore, get back to me once you're there, and then we can speak about introducing the fourth language. Good luck with it all. And the next question is from Angelica. Angelica is Russian, and she's got a 2-year-old daughter, and they live in Poland, and dad is Polish. Together so dad and mom speak English, and lately also speak English with their daughter. So, and thank you for the feedback about the website, Angelica. Very kind of you. I'm glad to hear that you find it useful. So Angelica speaks Russian when she's alone with her 2-year-old daughter, and dad speaks always Polish. And Angelica sometimes also speaks Polish to her in public instead of Russian. Daughter goes to a kindergarten in Polish, and Angelica never speaks Russian in front of her husband when they're all together. And now she is concerned that she will start working and there will be very little exposure to Russian for her daughter. So she feels that because her husband doesn't speak Russian and doesn't understand everything, so that's why Angelica always thought that it would be disrespectful to her husband to speak Russian in front of him. This is an issue that comes in many families where parents do not understand each languages. But what I always recommend is that you sit down and discuss the situation. If you and your husband, Angelica, agree that you want your child to learn both Russian and Polish, then you need to consider what you can do to support her Russian learning, because since you live in Poland, she will definitely learn Polish, and you mostly speak, or your husband always speaks Polish, and also in the weekends and evenings speaks Polish with your daughter. I presume you find that okay, because you understand Polish while he doesn't fully understand Russian. I would recommend that you always speak Russian to your daughter, even in front of your husband. I know this is a change to the situation you have at the moment, but if it's important to you, and I would like to remind everybody thinking about whether they want to pass on the language or not. I have never ever come across anybody who said, I regret learning a language. But I have lost count of the people who have said that I wish my mom or my dad would have taught her or his language to me. So if you have the chance, do it. Your child will thank you for it. There will be challenges and struggles on the way, but when they grow up, they will be so thankful, because Russian is an important link to her heritage and her side of the family. And therefore, I would recommend that you speak with your husband and explain the situation. You can refer about, maybe you can listen to this video together as well, because there's a recording available on the website. So because unless your daughter gets the exposure from you, there will be probably very little chance of her getting exposure from other sources. Since you're in Poland, it could well be possible that you could find maybe some play group for your daughter that she could attend, or some other Russian exposure. That would be really good. But most of all, I recommend that you speak Russian to her at home always, even when your husband is there, and you should agree with him that if there's something he does not understand, then he should ask, and you should translate whenever needed. What I have found in families like this, that initially you translate quite a lot, but because the other parent also gets more exposed to the language. If they are interested and have a positive attitude about it, they will pick up more and more about of the language, and there will be less need to translate. So this would be my recommendation to you, Angelica. If you have any other questions, just add them in a comment. And if you want to have more detailed kind of instructions about how to go about it, that would then fall within the family language coaching, where I would send you an interview with questions about your language situation, and then we would meet online, and then we would discuss further and see what's feasible and possible in your family, and then I would make a individual family language plan for you. If you're interested in that, then just send me an email to rita@multilingualparenting.com. And then the last question for today is from Daphne. She has commented on one of my posts on the website, the one about Monolingual Toys. I always recommend them. They're a good way to introduce language to a child, and also I did use them with my grandson as well when he was speaking English. Then we had certain toys that didn't understand anything else than Swedish, so he had to speak to them in Swedish, because he knew that I understand English, so it wasn't necessary for him to use Swedish with me. But since the toys didn't understand English, he did have to use it with them. So that worked. So Daphne, she has a 2.5-year-old and a 6-week-old daughter. Oh, congratulations on you, baby. And the 2.5-year-old speaks Dutch and Spanish. Mom speaks Dutch and also English, and Dad is Spanish, and they live in Spain. So as Mom is also fluent in English, she would like to introduce English to her daughter, to both daughters actually, and she will do that using the Monolingual Toys. She'll like a hand puppet. So that's that is a really effective way, because for children that's completely natural. As adults we might think, well, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Well, it might be. Kids just love it when a hand puppet shakes its head and doesn't understand, even if it's your hand shaking the head. For them it's real. The puppet doesn't understand. Other ways is to bring in games, rhymes and songs that are in your case, Daphne, English, You could also create an English only area at home where you always speak English. You keep some typical English toys. Maybe you listen to English songs when you are in that area. That's a good way also to bring in a third language into the home. And then you thought about having an English Monday. Yes, as soon as your daughter knows a little bit, then you can start with an English Monday. And what I recommend is then start with situations where your daughter is really familiar with everything that's happening. Don't come up with anything new. Just, for example, at the breakfast table. So you when you hand her milk or anything, then so it's clear from your action what it is that you're saying, because she knows what will happen in the situation, but you use English and in that scenario. And you're asking, can you do that with the baby as well? Yes, you can. It's probably what you will find that quite soon is that maybe that one day isn't enough, and you won't, because it's a quick change from one day to another. But you should see how it goes. But I say yes to both your suggestions, and I wish you good luck. If you're watching or watching the recording, just add further questions in the comments. So those were right. We have Myra. Welcome, Myra. Myra, what do you suggest to add a third language to my kids? So Myra, do you mean like a new language altogether that is not in your family? In that case, what you can do is to learn a language along your child, and it's hard work, but it can also be done. There's also a book about it. What I'll do after the session is finished, I will add a comment with the title of that book, if you're interested in learning a language along your child. And oh, thank you for everything you're doing for Spanish in your community in Texas, Myra. That's really important. And then Vir, two Spanish living in Ireland. We both talk Spanish to them and leave the English for out and about. Absolutely. If you have two parents speaking the minority language, that it's called a minority language at home approach, and that is actually more effective in statistically. Annick de Houwer from Netherlands have done extensive research on it, and the minority language at home is a really effective way of getting a child to learn the minority language. So it's used to always speaking only minority language at home. So that's very good, and good luck with that, and thank you for the comment. So that was all for today. Thank you very much. The next live session will now be in 3 weeks, not in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. But I will, as usual, put up a note on the Facebook page, and please do keep on sending the questions in. I'm happy to answer them, and keep on speaking those languages. I believe in you all. I know you can do it. I've done it myself. I've seen it done. It can be done. Okay, you take care, and see you in 3 weeks. Bye.